Aaron Stanford as John Alderant slash Pyro. He's a friend of Bobby and Rogue at the start. He's on the team. For me, this is an example of how the comics, the source material, is not the Bible. If you can take it and make it better, like the animated series of Batman did with a lot of characters, then by all means go and do it. If there's a character that has a great character that's better than what you change it to, that's a problem. But if it's a character that doesn't have a character, like in the comics, Pyro is just a henchman, then by all means, give him a character, and that's what they did in this film. His arc is extremely well done, where he realises he doesn't like the way he's been treated as a kid with the X-Men, has a talk with Magneto, decides he wants to be on Magneto. We get tendencies of him being the bad guy as he attacks the police and things like that, because he doesn't agree with the way that things are being handled. He lashes out at humans, showing that he's much more Magneto's ideals than he is on the X-Men's. He became much too much of a villain for me in the third film, but in this film he is absolutely brilliant. Would it really have hurt to give him an Australian accent though? Just saying. Just a nitpick. Kelly Hu as Yuriko slash Lady Deathstrike. We get no Yuriko, no backstory with Logan, which I think could have added depth to the whole fight between them later on. She's just there to be a henchman, a character to have a big fight with Logan, because she's got the same powers as him, and they have this great action fight, and it's cool. And we get to see Lady Deathstrike versus Wolverine, and that's all great. I know that a film can only be 2 hours, which is probably why the whole Yuriko backstory was cut, but I think a couple of lines between Logan saying Yuriko and sort of showing that there was sort of a recognition between the two would have been enough, and I think it would have added a lot more depth to the character. But you know what? She was there for a cool action scene, and we got a cool action scene out of her. Rebecca Ron Jim returns as Mystique, and she gets a lot more to do here. She gets to be the mastermind in springing Magneto, she gets to be an infiltrator a couple of times, she gets to have a really cool character moments. Even a moment where she actually starts looking like she's coming on to Wolverine and she wants to have sex with him, which was a bit weird, but she gets to do a lot more character stuff. Really enjoyed Mystique in this film. Good stuff. Michael Reed McKay as Jason Stryker slash Mutant 143 does a great job. Doesn't really get to do much except sit there, but we do get to see some emotion in an emotionless face, which is good. But the main thing that was acted through him was the little girl, and she does a really good job as well, so, you know. Good stuff. Quickly, as I noticed earlier, Senator Robert Kelly, even though he was killed in the first film, Bruce Davison did reprise the role. Mystique was actually impersonating him. That was all really cool. Having him in there as a connection to the first film. There was also a lot of cameos throughout the film. There was Kitty Pryde, there was Jubilee. Jubilee got a few scenes that were cut where she was in it a bit more. Colossus is in it as a big cameo, but he was actually intended to be in the film a lot more and was set to have a Russian accent. But Singer dropped it for unknown reasons and reduced his importance to a cameo. He was played by Daniel Cudmore, who played him in the next film. He had about just as much importance, even though he had more screen time. But while I agree that his inclusion in the film was not necessary and the film is great with or without him, but the fact he's only in a couple of scenes and he only has a couple of lines, why not just have him have the Russian accent just so it can be expanded upon later as a Russian Colossus? Also, a lot of other characters like Beast and Gambit and Psylocke were always supposed to come in. In fact, Gambit's scene was actually shot but never in the final cut. I would like to see that. And Beast is actually reduced to being a scientist on TV called Hank McCoy, who looks nothing like Beast as he would appear in the third film, so that's weird. But you know what? It's all unnecessary stuff, but it would have been nice fan service, but still. So let's get into the good, which there is a lot of. This film, as I touched, has a great plot, great interweaving plot. A lot of characters get a lot of arcs, a lot of characters are introduced and used well. But what is really great about this film is the quiet moments. In between all the big action pieces, we get a lot of cool character moments between characters, involving characters Mystique, Magneto, Storm, Nightcrawler, Wolverine, Jean Grey. All get to play off each other, all get to be the characters as we know and love them. Particular favourite scenes of mine is the Storm and Nightcrawler one, the one where Wolverine is essentially almost raped by Mystique. But as far as action goes, I'm a really big fan of the whole jet sequence where the military are after them, and again, probably my favourite sequence is the one involving Bobby Drake's family at his house. Just for being the best scene to represent the allegory of the X-Men and mutants with real life problems, racial and sexual and things of that nature. Just a great scene to show what the X-Men is all about. It's also just great filmmaking, such things as the opaque glass where Logan touches Stryker through it, symbolising his sort of distance from his past and things like that. That's just the film studies student in me coming out. While introducing all these different characters and different arcs, it also expands on arcs from the first film. The Xavier-Magneto rivalry and relationship continues, much more in the background, but he does get a few great scenes. I also like, even though Cyclops' role was cut during rewrites and his screen time was cut, even things that were shot were not put in the final film due to length, but he still gets some really cool character moments, especially Jean's death scene. He really gets to shine there in terms of an actor and as a character. And I also am a really big fan of the way that at the end, Wolverine and Cyclops' rivalry relationship has really evolved to where there is an understanding that Scott and Jean were meant to be together. That was great. A few problems and things that I've said to myself after multiple viewings. And no, I won't touch on the contradictions in Origins, because this film came out first and it was X-Men Origins' job to make sure that it was in line with this film, not the other way around. The whole thing with how Magneto escapes, as cool as it is a little bit shady for me. Has Magneto got metal sense? Could he sense the metal in the guy's blood? That was a bit weird. Also, when Cyclops turns up in the finale when he attacks Jean Grey, he's in his X-suit. I guess Stryker decided to get that from the X-Mansion and put him in it. Why? I don't know. But those are some minor gripes and nitpicks of what is otherwise a great film. I know, as I've said, a lot of characters and a lot of cameos that would have been great for me as an X-Men fan were cut, but in a sense what this film does is it has just enough characters to where all of them get great moments, great scenes, and all of them are there for a purpose. No character is really superfluous, which is something that the next two films needed to learn about. So, as bad as those scenes getting cut for me as an X-fan is, they make sense in terms of making a film. In wrapping up, as I said, X-Men 2 is absolutely fantastic. A+ for me. It is by far the X-Men's shining moment on screen, and it promised what could have been a fantastic third film. But that didn't happen, did it? Join me next time when we talk about the downturn that was X-Men 3.